Nate, thank you for this offering. I want to always have beginner's mind.
Yeah, you and me both. As saying, this is often an offering that head students make, but each one makes it differently. And Kim has seen the gamut. I just think, is there anyone you haven't seen? Yeah. Kim.
Me?
Yeah.
Well, if Joel did one, I didn't go to that.
Okay. Well, one. So I'm sure this will be different.
We get so little from at least I do from just listening to someone.
Yeah.
You know,
So Kim, are you learning how to be a beginner? Is that starting to happen for you now?
I am so far from achieving that. I think, isn't it, Nate, around 10% that you get by listening to someone?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about what the research says. And then there's a whole movement of hearing, visualizing, and writing, which integrates it more, and then doing it in an embodied way, which gets you closer to half. So we'll do all of them because I'm an old teacher.
And thank you for
was everyone able to download what Nate suggested we download?
Oh, I didn't know. I didn't see that.
I did.
I'll send you a link in just a minute so that everybody can do it now. I figured that might be a little funky.
I'm sorry.
So
It was let me see if I can. Did I get an email?
Yep, but I'll send a link to you in just a second. Let's give everybody a minute or two more, and then or just a minute more, and I'll share out the link. I've got to find it myself.
Nate, was the registration through the circle format as well?
No, so I made that a public link so that anyone could do it. In fact, before we leave today, I'll give you a link to actually sign up and register for things.
Because somewhere I saw register and I clicked it, but I couldn't tell whether I actually did it or not.
Yeah, sorry if that was a little funky. We're experimenting with this thing. We'll see if we can get it to work. So, well, why don't we go ahead and get started? It's a minute past, so that people trickle in, that's fine. Hi.
Hi.
It's so good to see all of you in your various backgrounds. And such a delight to be able to know that we're going to be able to engage with each other more than just in silence, which I love as well. But it's nice to be able to talk with you. But as we get started today, I thought we would sit for just 2 or 3 minutes and get settled in. And so I've got a little bell here, which I'll ring in just a second. And no, I'll give everyone a couple of minutes to get situated and set up with the materials and things that we'll need. But as we start to sit, just a little bit of orientation, and most of you may know this. When we sit for Zazen, you'll hear the timekeeper ring the bell 3 times. That's the indication that we're moving into Zazen. So I'll ring the bell 3 times. And as you're sitting in your seat, if you're looking for a posture that works for you, just find a place where you can sit as upright as you can, with a slight curve in the arch of your back. And you might put your hands in a mudra, if that's a comfortable position, or on your knees, if you want a resting place. And then just avert your gaze slightly downward and keep your eyes about 2/3 open. That's kind of a way of thinking about it. And we'll just sit for 3 minutes so we can settle in and center ourselves as we engage with one another a bit today.
Nate?
Yeah.
I found the email and the link isn't opening anything for me.
Okay. Well, let me.
It's like a blank. This is what I'm getting, just blank. There's nothing there.
Me too.
Oh, shoot. Okay. Well, I'll send it along in just a second. So let's sit and then I can pass it as an attachment in a minute. All righty. I'm so glad to be with you on this Saturday afternoon, which is not normally a time we do things at Upamata as much. So thanks for spending your afternoon together. As we get started, I'll share the link to the resources, which you might want to print out if you have the ability to do that, or just put them on a screen, but you definitely will want a piece of paper and a writing implement at some point, because as some of you know, I'm an old teacher. I've taught for 20 years and been a principal and all that. So I have some teacherly tendencies that may emerge inside of our work today. But as I'm setting up for that and sending everyone the resources they need, I'd love to just have everyone check in. So we just tell us again your name. I think most folks know each other, but just share your name, where you are right now, and one word to describe your current state of being. And Anne, since I just spoke with you last night, I'm curious. You're up first.
Okay, my name is Anne Lipscomb. I'm in Austin, Texas. And my current state of being is anticipatory.
Mm. Can you choose somebody else, Anne?
Yeah, I'll choose someone I don't really know. Milen? Is that right?
Yes, hi. My name is Milan. I'm in Mexico City. Well, actually, I'm in Monterrey, the north of Mexico right now. And I can't find the word in English, but it's like I'm waiting for something. That's how I feel.
Hmm.
And Kim, hello.
I'm Kim from Austin. And I'm feeling so good because I just took a long walk, and it's one of my favorite things to do, and I hardly ever do it. And now I'm feeling a breeze on the back. I turned on the fan, and on my ceiling, I'm feeling a breeze on the back of my neck, which feels really, really good too. And Ellen.
Hi, I'm Ellen, and I'm feeling interested and a little bit excited. Jay.
Thank you. I'm Jay from Jersey. And what am I feeling? I don't know. I don't know what I'm feeling, but I'm excited to be here, but I don't know. So Nelda.
Hi, my name is Nelda Adamson, and I live in Austin. And I'm feeling very relaxed. This is my third Zen event today, so I'm just very relaxed, and I'm delighted to be here. I know I'll learn more. Let's see, Genève.
Hi, I'm Genève, and I'm in Maine. I today have been in a state of overwhelming fear. But at the moment, I'm very grateful to be here. And it's lovely to see you, Claudine.
Okay, I am Claudine, and I am in Switzerland. And it's also my third Appamada event today. So I'm a bit tired and very interested and looking forward. Rosemary?
Hi, thank you, Claudine. Hi, everybody. I'm Rosemary, and I'm in Fort Lee, New Jersey. And I'm in the state of anticipation, like Anne and others. Oh, and did we leave anybody out? I don't think so. Okay. Oh, Nate, what's your state? What is your state?
Right. I'm Nate. I'm in Austin. I'm delighted to be with you all and to be with some of my Jersey brethren, by the way. I'm a former Jersey guy, so that's exciting to me. I'm just enjoying your presence already and looking forward to what emerges. And one of the things I will say about sort of my approach to teaching in general, as I find yet another way to share this talk with you all, is I tend to think of myself as kind of a guide through this, so that I've got a bunch of things that we could do, a bunch of possibilities, but I would just want to be curious about what shows up and responsive to what shows up. So we'll do that together in a second. Anne.
We haven't heard from Ellen.
Oh, Ellen. Yeah.
Oh, we did.
Oh,
Yes,
we
we
did.
did.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Sorry.
Okay.
I'm confused.
Oh, I'd let you know if you forgot me.
All right, so there's a couple different ways to access these documents, which may or may not be in front of you just yet. So apologies if you weren't able to get to it. The last one should be completely open for everybody, so hopefully that one works.
Yeah, I'm getting it.
Okay, nifty. So if you've got something, it looks like this. It says an introduction to Zen, and we're going to tinker around with this just a little bit as we get started. So as I was thinking about how to do this, the first thing you'll notice is the pronoun. It is an introduction to Zen, not the introduction to Zen. This is just one way of seeing it, and I don't think there is any particular way of doing it right, so to speak. But I wanted to offer this through the lens of the three jewels. And the reason I started thinking about the three jewels of Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha are because when I was new to practice, I had no idea what they were. Not really. I knew who the Buddha was in a sort of historical passing way, but I didn't really understand this concept of Dharma and Sangha. And so I thought it would be an interesting place for us to dwell and see what the teachings have to offer. So we'll focus a little bit more on Buddha and what that first jewel is like today. Then go in our second pass, we'll spend a little time on Dharma, and then last to Sangha. But in each time that we meet, I'll try to mix up a lot of study, a lot of conversation and relationship, and some practice as well. So we're diving in as much as we can. And as we're diving in today, I have a couple of norms for us up in the little gray box on that piece of paper if you're looking at it. I would just love to hear your response to what you think any one of those might look and sound like. I tried to think of ones that would suit us and our intentions and our purpose as Zen students, but be present, stay open and curious, seek to connect, experiment in the everyday, and enjoy this. So does any one of those speak to you, and what do you think that might look and sound like for us as we begin our engage with each other today? Yeah, just jump in.
Okay, so be present. It's pretty basic, but for me, you know, sometimes not so easy to be fully present, you know, and so yeah, to be fully present with all of you and with the material and really listening to everyone, and then it gets into some of the others like staying open and all of that. But yeah, being fully present here at this time with you all.
Great. Does another resonate for you? A different one?
I'm curious about experimenting in the everyday, and I don't know what that would look like for me, but I want to try and integrate this with where I am today, and not just have this remain in a little capsule. So that's where my curiosity is right now.
Well, you said that beautifully. I love that. Any other ones that pop for other folks?
Enjoy this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good. Let's laugh together. Let's enjoy each other's company and see what arises. Last call for reflections on the norms.
I would say seek to connect. I've really just presently, I've come to, that's the big deal. Connection, connection, connection.
And I think there's a sort of a proactiveness, if you will, to that seeking to connect, like making that an intentional part of your aspiration. And there's a way of being present, but there's a difference between being present and connecting. So at least in my experience, and I wanted to add some color to that. So cool. Well, let's dive in. I've got one quote at the bottom, which is the one that many of you have probably heard, but it seems important to ground us in that. Kim, would you mind just reading that one from Dogen?
What you want me to read on the path?
The study of the self, the study the Buddha way.
The quote at the bottom.
Quote at the bottom of the first page.
To study the Buddha way is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self. To forget the self is to be actualized by myriad things. When actualized by myriad things, your body and mind, as well as the bodies and minds of others, drop away. No trace of realization remains. and this no trace continues endlessly. Hey, Dogen.
Just some ways to ground us as we dive into the work and to practice with each other a little bit today. So up to the next page on the back, I've got a warm-up activity as any good teacher would. I'm going to teach you something, or maybe you've experienced something similar with Peg. I call this perpetual pens. So you will need a pen or pencil handy. Perpetual pens means I'll give you a time limit. In this case, just a mere 3 minutes. So I promise you can survive. And a very simple question to respond to, or seemingly simple question. And your task is in the 3 minutes to write nonstop for those 3 full minutes. If you get stuck, you're welcome just to repeat the last word that you wrote. It'll feel a little weird, but that's okay. So just write as much as you need to. There's a little notes section on the very last page if you are a very expansive writer and would like a little bit more time. But we're only going to write for 3 minutes. And I give you the very seemingly simple question, what brings you here? And you may answer to that in any way that you like. And you may think about what any of those words in particular mean in any way that you like. And you have 3 minutes, starting now. And there's your time. Finish up your last sentence or thought. And take a minute to go back and just underline, star, circle anything that you put on paper that resonates with you or sounds like truth. Okay. I'm curious, what brings you here and how did you think about any of those words and how did you respond? Who wants to jump in? We're a small bunch, so I figured rather than a breakout rooms, we'll talk as a whole. Yeah.
Well, if it's okay, I'll go ahead and read mine
Yeah.
really quickly because that'll be easier for me.
Yeah.
What brings you here? Nate's Dharma. What is its color, its outline, its flavors and memories? How does it connect and resonate with me? How do I question it? How do I learn from it? Will it change me? I hope so. I long to be different than I am. Though I know in Buddhist teaching that is a prohibition. Okay, no prohibitions, but unskillful, as people at Appamada often describe a prohibition. I crave learning the key, the lodestone, the answer, the truth. Maybe that comes closer through committee, i.e. with lots of different inputs, something becomes clear.
Ellen.
Okay, two statements struck me as, am I muted? No, as particularly true. And the first one was at the top and the second one and the last one that seemed true was at the bottom of what I wrote. And the first one that I wrote that seemed true was the enthusiasm of my Dharma buddies brings me here, because I'm also one of these people who's been from this morning, even before Women in Zen, I was doing something about concerning Appamada. And so I thought I might not be able to do this too. But everybody in the previous group was so enthusiastic, I just couldn't miss it. And then the last one was, now that I'm with more traditional sanghas, I want to expand my Buddhism vocabulary.
Wonderful.
That's me.
Thank you. And listen, by the way, I'll say, I'll let a couple more folks share, and then we'll take a minute to just respond to what anybody said, sort of collectively, anything that touched you or moved you. Feel free to jot down their thoughts and respond as well. Jay, what you got?
So I said, Buddha brings me here because I usually look at the Appamada calendar and let whatever class is offering speak to me and attend. I saw today's class, but had not committed to it. But then it was brought up again during Women in Zen, which, piqued my interest. And having your name mentioned, I remembered your inauguration during the January intensive, which made me want to look at it a little bit more further because I remembered your inauguration. So when I went to the last session we had for the silent illumination, and it was mentioned again, I said, that was my third cock crowing because I'm Catholic, right? I think that was my third cock crowing and I knew I had to attend, so. Thanks.
I'm the son of a preacher man. I get the reference immediately. I'm with you. Claudine.
Yes. Well, the first thing I wrote was I want to be part of the Sangha and to connect. And as I spent all the day with Appamada, I wanted also to come tonight. It's night for me. It's 8 p.m.
Mhm.
In Switzerland. And the other thing is, I wrote, I want to learn more things, but then I thought, oh no, I want to learn more things, but I want to let these things penetrate my mind on a non-intellectual way. Non-intellectual way is non-knowing knowing, if
Yeah.
it makes sense for you. So that was and then the last thing was to do it in and enjoy it instead of make an effort, because I felt really tired of making effort today. So that's it.
Thank you. Kim, take us home. Last call.
What brings you here? My parents had sex. My mom wanted a boy and vowed to have kids until it happened. That was not the era of sex change, or they could have made a boy of my sister. Jump forward 75 years and I'm here because nothing else and nowhere else makes sense. That is what. And then I have a drawing. So there's the drawing. I didn't get very far with the drawing. I've been doing 10-minute pieces, but this was my first 3-minute piece.
I'm glad that I could give you those conditions to try that one out.
I like that, a 3-minute piece.
Well, I want to open it up for folks to respond to something that resonated with anyone else, with what anyone said. What brings you here?
I wanted to reply to Claudine, because to say that she wants to experience this with joy rather than effort, that's really, boy, if I could put into words what I want to do with my life, even with just this move that I have to make within the next like 2 weeks. If I could even just do one thing that I'm afraid of with joy rather than effort, it would be a very meaningful shift for me. Thank you, Claudine.
Yeah.
May I just say something about that and make an allusion to the Wednesday meditation we do with Ellen, and the Lojan, you say, the slogan. And I had a look to all the slogans, and so I thought, oh, I might choose the one that is talking to me most. And it was the number 33, and it might please you, Genève, as well. It is, don't make everything so painful. And so that's why I have chosen the idea of enjoying this course. Sorry for taking this time. Okay.
No, thank you. Kim and then Rosemary.
Kim?
Oh.
No.
What am I supposed to say?
I don't know. I thought you were going to respond to somebody else.
Your hand is still up, Kim.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no
I will
worries.
put it, I will lower it.
Rosemary.
So I wanted to respond to Anne because first of all, she talked about you, Nate, and wanting to receive, I guess, from you, what's the Nateness about you and how you would provide yourself to us, or the Buddha through yourself to us. And I just thought it was so lovely. And then a lot of Anne's piece was about connecting with others and learning through the group, and very different from what I wrote. So I appreciated Anne's perspective. It really sort of rounded out where I was going with why I'm here. So thank you, Anne, and everybody.
Thank you. I'll build on that a little. Oh, Nelda, jump in and then I'll close us out.
Okay, so I actually wrote everything that Anne wrote in my head. But the only thing that actually came out was confusion, curiosity, and connection, because I love alliteration. And so those 3 words and the last and one sentence, I've heard not knowing is most intimate. We shall see.
Mhm. And your line about so hearing what Nate's Dharma is going to be like has been interesting to me, because I'm sewing with you right now. And I've been living in and experiencing Anne's Dharma in this really personal and beautiful way. And so I'm so glad that you're here. And one of the things that I am coming to love and appreciate about this practice is how we can each inhabit it so differently and add such color and beauty to it. So I think there maybe is a misunderstanding sometimes when people are approaching Zen, that there's this kind of emptying of color and personality and vibrance and things that isn't entirely accurate. And so I just appreciated your comment and appreciated your presence, the opportunity to learn from you. So thank you. Well, one last starter question at the very bottom, small box, intentionally small. And then I'm going to ask you to fill this out or jot it down wherever you have it, so that you can see if it changes over the course of our 3 classes, which is Zen is ... What would you put down? Sorry, my phone has lost its mind.
But it was so in tune, Nate. It was beautifully orchestrated. Then is ding, ding, ding. What?
You've got a little more time than that. Just take about 30 more seconds to finish out a thought. Okay. I'd love to hear from just 2 or 3 folks of how did you complete that? Ellen, what did you put down? I'm curious.
Thank you, Nate. I put down Zen is Zazen, open, opening, ever opening, unending, connecting to everything and everyone, environment, and then I guess that this means environment clarifying, environment that clarifies living by vow.
Mm. Lovely, thank you.
Sorry, living by what?
Vow.
Oh, thank you.
Bodhisattva vow. Yeah.
Somebody else want to jump in? There's never any right or wrong. It's just what's moving in you.
Okay. Oh, my hand was up anyway. Okay. I forgot to take it down. Sitting, collecting the mind, offering oneself fully to the present moment, opening oneself to the vastness of life, clarity, compassion, community, and I don't know.
Lovely honesty. Thank you. Milan, I'm going to hear from you.
All right. Zen is a practice of learning how to live by yourself.
Such beautiful and interesting and varied views, right? And I think I would answer this question. I probably will answer this question differently by the end of the day, or even in the next 15 minutes. So it's interesting how living and dynamic a thing this practice is, or not even a thing. We'll get into that later. But I just wanted to start us there because I'm just curious to look back at the end of our time together and say, what did we start with thinking about? And then where did we end up? What changed? What shifted? What moved? So I just love this sort of bookends approach to this. But let's take a look at this sort of orientation towards the 3 jewels on the next page. And if you can pull those up on page 3, either on your screen or in front of you, that will be lovely. And I just thought we'd do this, but as a teacher, we sometimes call this a spirit read. So a spirit read is somebody jumps in and reads for a paragraph or so and stops, reads as much as they like as the spirit moves them, and then stops, and then somebody else can just jump in. So you don't need to call on anyone or popcorn necessarily. But if one person wouldn't mind just volunteering to take the first paragraph, there's only 4 little parts. It'd be lovely to read aloud, and we'll reflect a bit. And this is a little bit of an orientation stolen and adapted from Tricycles, Buddhism for Beginners. If you haven't encountered that series on Tricycle, it's lovely and wonderful. And you could sit with it for a long time, even if you've been sitting for 10 years. There's some really rich stuff in there.
What's it called, Nate?
It's Buddhism for Beginners on Tricycle, on the Tricycle website. Who'd like to jump in first?
I go.
Thanks.
One of the oldest way of expressing faith in Buddhism is by taking refuge in the 3 jewels, also known as the triple gem or the triple gem, and the 3 treasures. The 3 jewels are the Buddha, the Dharma, the teaching, and the Sangha, the community of practitioners. Many rituals and ceremonies in Buddhist communities around the world, as well as a daily practice for individuals, begin with recitation of the 3 refuge vows. At Appamada, we recite the refuges each morning, chanting, I take refuge in Buddha, I take refuge in Dharma, I take refuge in Sangha.
For many practitioners, taking refuge is one of the first steps in declaring oneself a Buddhist, along with taking the precepts, guidelines for an ethical life. But what does it mean to take refuge in the 3 jewels?
Taking refuge is a way to formalize one's commitment to and faith in the Buddha's path and take shelter from the vicissitudes of life. But taking refuge does not mean retreating from life. Rather, it enables us to embrace the world in all its complexity as the vehicle for releasing our destructive habits. The Tibetan Buddhist teacher, Chogyam Trungpa, described it. Thank you.
No worries. Well done.
Described it as committing ourselves to freedom. In taking refuge in the Buddha, we are looking to him as a teacher and exemplar, an ordinary person who awakened to his true nature and serves as a guide to an enlightened life. When we take refuge in the 3 jewels, we also take refuge in our own Buddha nature and potential for liberation.
And I share this piece with you because I've read it now several times over, and each time I read it, a different piece sort of speaks to me in a different line or a set of words lands in a soft space with me. And so I'm wondering, within these words, what lands with you? What appeals to you or moves in you? Jay, yeah.
An ordinary person who awakened to his true nature and serves as a guide to an enlightened life. An ordinary person. I love that.
Can you say more about why?
Because it means that it's attainable for each one of us. It doesn't put it out of reach, you know? It's not like this extraordinary being, but an ordinary person. That's you, me, you know, everyone here, everyone around the world. We can all attain it.
Thank you. Are there other lines that resonated for you? Questions? Rosemary, yeah.
The very last line, when we take refuge in the three jewels, we also take refuge in our own Buddha nature and potential for liberation. Freedom for me has always been scary. I've been someone who's opted more for safety and security. And so I like the idea of the potential for liberation. That gives me encouragement.
Yeah. Kim, yeah. Something. Or Ann, yeah.
I like the committing ourselves to freedom. And right before this, my wife had CNN on, and it showed a picture of people leaving Ukraine. And I had this image of, of Putin wanting this country, but he's getting the country, but not the people. And he's getting this like devastated wasteland that he's creating, and seeing the people. And they said this is so hard on the people, but this person who I saw on the TV had a smile on their face as they were leaving. So it was very, it was almost uplifting that he couldn't take that away from people. So that was a committing themselves to freedom, which they've had 30 years of.
And thank you, Kim.
You are muted, Anne.
Thank you, Claudine.
Yeah.
I wanted to respond to Kim's current news really quickly, that I just read an article in the New Yorker about a lot of people are immigrating to Russia. They're leaving to go to Russia because they're frightened. And a lot of people are leaving to go to the Russian-held territories. So there's that side. So there's both of those. But I wanted to say that I was struck by the Buddha, and he was an ordinary person. And I struggled with it. And then I thought, yeah, okay, calm down. It makes him more of an ordinary person. Yeah, there are he's. So deal with it. Yeah. So I just had to say.
I love it. Yeah.
I got distracted by that too. And I was like, seriously, really, I think it would be a woman. And then I was like, but actually she's probably working really hard. No, yeah, it really makes sense that it was a guy, because he's the one who could get away and do nothing all day long. And I'm like, this is probably not where I'm supposed to be going with this.
But delightful that you did all the same. For me, the piece that stands out in this class was, what does it mean to take refuge? And just the question itself in the three jewels. And that's a kind of a perpetual inquiry. What does it mean? And what does it look and sound like to take refuge? And I'm sitting with that. Yeah.
Yeah. But to me, in a deeper note, the thing that leapt out at me was Buddhism enables us to embrace the world in all its complexity as the vehicle for releasing our destructive habits. So for me, it's a kind of paradox that isn't one, where I think of taking refuge as curling up in bed with sheets over my head.
Right.
And this taking refuge is entering the ocean and flowing with everything. And that to me feels in my body like, or in my heart, like a huge kind of liberation in which you don't need to hide.
I love that, by the way. It's helpful for me to hear you say that, because I have a connotation around refuge as a sort of hiding place as well.
Yeah, that was one of the lines that jumped out at me. Refuge doesn't mean retreating from life. I had that like boxed around. I loved that line, you know?
Let's dive into these three jewels a little bit more, and we can come back to this. I just want to kind of round out our understanding. And just as by way of background, why I'm kind of curious about the origins of language here. I'm in the middle of a PhD dissertation, and I'm using Joanna Macy's work as one of, if folks are familiar with Joanna Macy's work at all on mutual causality, as one of the touchstones in my work. And she references the Pali Canon quite a bit as she's talking about conditionality and mutual causality. And I think some of the times I've sort of forgotten that these funky words that were new to me so long ago also come from Sanskrit and have an interesting origin that and just seeing the way that she plays with language and gives color to the language has made me appreciate these terms anew. So I'm offering you some of that language as well. So I'll start off with Buddha, and then if somebody else would jump in and read Dharma and Sangha, that'd be great. So Buddha derives from the Sanskrit root Buddha, which literally to wake up, be awake. The name Buddha, meaning an awakened one, refers especially to Sakyamuni, the prince of the Shakya tribe and the founder of Buddhism. A Buddha, typically noted with a lowercase b, is also any fully enlightened being, not necessarily a Buddhist practitioner or student. We often use the term Buddha nature to describe the inherent quality of being a Buddha, always present in every sentient being. Somebody else get Dharma.
Dharma derives its meaning from the Sanskrit root tri, to bear, to support. The Buddhist understanding of Dharma is the teachings of Buddha, the path or way taught by Buddha, or the teachings of the enlightened ones who have followed Buddha.
I'll do Sangha. Sanga's meaning comes from the Sanskrit prefix sam, with, and the root han. Han has various meanings, but in this combination, it means contact. Thus, pre-Buddhist texts refer Muni Sangha, a gathering of sages. Today, Sangha refers to a community of Buddhist practitioners. A Sangha is any group of people who practice regularly together, who share an aspiration to realize the awakened life, and who support each other in this aspiration.
So again, in these three jewels, if this is what we're taking refuge in, is there anything either in the origin or the language here that's sticking out for you as nourishing?
I think for Dharma, to bear or to support stuck out to me.
Say more about why.
Because the Buddha would be, just because I've been doing some reading along these lines, the Buddha is more of the absolute, more of the like sitting in meditation when, like, I don't know, you're really right there. I don't know what to call it. Every now and then you can really be right there. I mean, that feels like the Buddha, when you feel like you touch into your own Buddha nature, but it's not something you can, it's a Dharma is in my life today. Dharma roots me in my life today. And into this world today that I'm living in. So it supports me. It supports me in a very real way.
I didn't know that that was the origin of it. And so that one really stood out to me as well. I'd never heard that. And suddenly it just gave color to this word that we use in a particular context, that just, because I felt that the only thing I do is make this motion of feeling supported and held by something, right? But to know that that's actually what it means was startling. Yeah, Jenna.
Well, it's interesting. I'm very much a novice to Buddhism and to Zen, but I lived with a Hindu family for 6 years as part of the family. And I read, a 700-page summary of the Mahabharata, which is 7,000 pages long. And my understanding was that dharma was right action, but
Duty.
But this is interesting because I feel that in order for me to intuitively and immediately in every moment participate or channel right action, what helps me is to feel supported by just sort of like I don't even know how to say it, but maybe the Buddha, the something beyond me.
Yeah, and in Hinduism, it means duty, more or less, like what you said, right action. It means duty, and it's all over, like all over all kinds of text with that meaning.
Well, and it often seems to mean obedience, but my personal experience of it is more with ethics, and I think that's where I derive its meaning for me. Is what is the next right action right now, right now, right now.
I think if I can jump in, the one that stood out for me is Sangha, and the I never knew the Han meant contact, and to the sort of idea of seeking connection and making contact, like that idea of a community that makes contact and connection, that just was softening for me.
Oh, that's so interesting. I mean, isn't a Han the board that you hit? Yeah. And so that's how we come together.
Mm-hmm.
That is very interesting.
Contact, right?
Contact, yeah.
Contact.
And so immediate and so like explosion.
Yeah.
And so like all at once.
Now, it's now.
When the contact can be, think about the different possibilities and the range of quality of contact. Something can be like the striking of a bell is contact that resonates and carries, or it's a touch, right? That's soft and gentle, but it's still contact, right? There's something interesting about that as a possibility inside of Sangha.
And all the different ways that people ring the bell. I mean, when you listen to Joel ring the bell, how it's this gentle touch.
Mm-hmm.
And other people, it's very different and it's very individual.
I think Kim was raising his hand. Nate.
Yeah, Kim, what were you thinking?
Well, in a book we read about, some of us read on community, there was a distinction between a community and a group. And one thing that stands out in my mind is that in a community, people look out for each other, where a group is just an assembly of people. So that's really important for a Sangha, is that you know, this expression, you have each other's back.
Mhm.
Love it. Well, I wanted to give us some grounding in these three jewels, and we'll dive a little more deeply into Buddha and there are two parts of this that I'd like to tinker with. So on the next page, there's a short summary or sort of origin story, Buddha's origin story. And if you search for these, there are dozens upon dozens of slightly different, that all have slightly different variations about the historical Buddha and what his life was like. And some of us in Council 3 were reading a book called The Circle of the Way, which it really points out that there's a wide range of stories and not a whole lot of certainty about what exactly was true. But still the legend has persisted over time and certain features remain consistent and true. So I'll offer you one, and then we'll turn from the particular embodied historical Buddha to Buddha nature. What does that show up for us? And start to see some interesting correlations. And that's where we're really going to pivot from the historical Buddha, which is true of every denomination or sect within Buddhism, to Buddha nature. We're going to start to zoom in on what some Zen and Chan teachers really say about it in particular. But let's dive into the historical Buddha. So would somebody like to take the first paragraph? Same thing. We'll just spirit read this on page 4 a little.
I'll read the first part.
Thanks.
The historical Buddha was an Indian prince named Siddhartha Gautama, who lived some 2,600 years ago in an area that today is part of northern India and Nepal. He was born into a warrior clan known as the Shakya, which is why he is often called Shakyamuni, sage of the Shakyas.
According to legend, shortly after Siddhartha's birth, a sage prophesied that the child would grow up to be either a great king or a renowned spiritual leader. His father, the king, did everything in his power to ensure that his son and heir would have no reason to pursue religious life, showering him with every privilege and luxury and sheltering him from the harsh realities of the world outside the palace.
The prince married and later had a son, but he became extremely dissatisfied at the age of 29, and at the age of 29 ventured beyond the palace walls on a series of carriage rides that would change the course of his life. On the first trip, he saw a sick man. On the second, an old man. And on the third, a corpse. These were his first encounters with the inevitable suffering experienced by all human beings, no matter how highborn, and the knowledge was devastating. Then, on a fourth carriage ride, Siddhartha saw a merchant spiritual seeker, and he had a revelation. There might be a way out of suffering, and the possibility lay in the religious life.
Soon thereafter, Siddhartha left the palace to set out on a religious quest. He studied with renowned spiritual teachers and then embarked on a journey with several companions, meditating and taking up severe ascetic practices, such as prolonged fasting that nearly killed him.
Ultimately, he had another realization. The way out of samsara, cycle of birth, suffering, and death, lay neither in indulgence nor in extreme physical denial. There was a middle way to end suffering through training the mind. The former prince resolved to meditate under a ficus tree, now known as the Bodhi tree, in a town called Bodh Gaya, until he had discovered the answer to his quest. After 49 days, he had a series of insights into the nature of reality, and he became enlightened. For the next 45 years, until his death, he was known as the Buddha, the awakened one, and taught the path to liberation that he had realized.
So this is in one version of the story that many of us have heard before. I'm curious, as you look at the story, what's a piece that resonates with you in your life?
So what resonates for you in this particular telling?
You want us to write, Nate?
No, you can just share. Just share. There's a place to capture notes later.
I was struck by the fact that it was a mendicant seeker. So by definition, someone who had nothing and was curious, that catalyzed his curiosity, which eventually led him through two different kinds of experience to a middle way. But I was very, it struck me that it was a mendicant seeker who said it, who's the spark.
And you know, I'm sorry, Ellen, go ahead.
Oh, no, Anne, go ahead. I can wait.
I'm just realizing it strikes me that he didn't see a poor person. He wasn't moved to social justice. He was moved to spiritual enlightenment. He didn't see social injustice, which is really interesting to me.
In some versions, do you?
It seems like it's always sickness, old age, and death,
But
which is pretty universal. But
he
so
wasn't caught up with the class system. Anyone could follow him. And so in that sense, he was interested in social justice.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. And just a note here, you don't need to raise hands in this because I really want people to be able to respond to one another live at the moment and contribute. So raising hands, meaning in the little reaction thing, feel free to just jump in.
Before you guys go further, could someone explain? I mean, I had not heard the word mendicant before, and I realized I read it incorrectly because I saw merchant in my eyes. But what is a mendicant? When I looked it up, it said a beggar. But then,
Yep.
Okay. So a beggar, spiritual seeker.
Yep.
Yes.
All right.
And you still see them all over India.
That was a big part of the monastery, right? That the monks, that was part of what they did is they went out to beg, I think. Am I right about that?
Yeah.
So in my mind, I sort of see that as someone who's completely given themselves over to the spiritual path, so much so that they are dependent on others for their basic subsistence.
Well, so much so that they are a gift to others who then share of their lesser worldly materials.
And the big thing about sense appetites for me is something in Zen about free from sense appetites. So you don't worry about having a nice pair of pants, and you don't worry
about the next meal either. You just worry about this meal, right? This moment. You're not saving for some potentiality that may or may not occur.
No, you're not allowed to save any food. You can either eat it yourself or give it to someone right now.
But speaking of the sense appetites, what was missing from this version was that he was almost dying, and that he was the woman that was passing with a bowl of rice noticed that he was very ill and gave him food. So that's also not, obviously we're not completely not focused on what we need to survive.
So I'd like to interject as a contrarian here for just a bit, because if I may I, Nate?
Yeah.
I find the history before his awakening almost irrelevant. The reason I find that history almost irrelevant is that the first version I ever heard about the Buddhist life was nothing like this. The article I read was, having come from a military family, they abhorred wealth. That was outside their code to gather wealth. And so since he was the heir apparent, most of his life was in training to be the next warrior king. And the article I read, and again, there are many versions. So this is why for me, that kind of background history is not as significant as the actual moment of awakening and what brought it about, whether it was that he saw death and hunger and so on, or as likely that he was actually went off to war before he was 29 and saw death and suffering and pain there, and maybe even had post-traumatic, a post-traumatic event. It doesn't, for me, as a Zen Buddhist, the details as to what got him there are really less significant than the fact that he got there. And so just that's why I've been a little quiet in the reading, because we hear many stories about many of our spiritual guides, leaders of the past from different spiritual practices. And I wonder how right we've gotten those facts. But the one, quote, fact that we got right is his teachings and what he's left us. And that's sort of where I start with Buddha's story. So.
As you were talking, Nelda, I was thinking Flint often says that people often come to Buddhism from one of two places. One, they hit bottom. They hit bottom and they say they sort of are leveled by life in some way, right? And life can't afford to continue in that same way. Or sometimes they come from aspiration. They see something in someone else and they say, what's that about? I'm curious about that. And some combination of both. But what's interesting to me in this version of the story, or any piece of it, that it's the mendicant, right, that he's curious about. And like he's like, what's that? There's something there. And there does seem to be a place where he's saying, all this around me, none of this is it. So it felt like almost a combination of the two. All these trappings, whether it be military or wealth or otherwise, aren't serving me. And so interesting sort of realization that informs it.
Thank you, Nate.
I mean, personally, for me, I mean, why do we even study history, right? It gives us a viewpoint. And I love hearing the origin story of what brought you to this place versus like, well, I'm at this place, let's jump off from there. But, we honor each person's perspective and experience to that. But regarding the story, I love the fact that his father tried every which way to direct the course of his life. And regardless of that, he still ended up where he ended up, right? So I think that's a lesson.
Yeah, whether it was as a soldier or a rich prince, right? He ended up where he wanted to end up. That's lovely. So, thank you, Jay.
Yeah. Yes. And for me, part of the story is that he kept getting it wrong until he didn't. But that's inspiring to me, that I may be looking in the wrong place right now. And that's a journey. That's part of a journey. You can't start at the place you finally find, Yeah.
Well, Nate, you asked how can you relate to the story in your personal life? And just immediately my mind went to, my great grandmother lived to be 102. I was 14, I guess, when she was 102. And so I was not a Buddha. I didn't decide to figure out to end suffering, all suffering or anything like that. But it still made a big impression on me how ancient she was. And she eventually ended up in a nursing home and with all these other ancient people. And I did become what did you call it? A candy striper or something like that, and go and like read people letters and stuff like that. So I guess there was a little bit of wanting to release suffering in that, not maybe universal suffering, but I don't know. When you said that, I went, oh yeah, I did. Seeing all these ancient old people made me kind of go, oh, well, there's something in life. This is something about life that I don't know about and that I want to know about. And it also brings up the fact of death.
Yes.
And so those things kind of came up simultaneously.
Mm.
So I could just relate to that part of his life going, oh my God, look at that ancient wrinkled person. How that feels.
Yeah, I would say that really struck me too, as somebody that works with ancient wrinkled people, and who's caring for an ancient wrinkled mother, that how hard that is, how she suffers, how people suffer from losses, and how there's no way out of that. And then somebody says there's a way to deal with it. Maybe not a way out, but a way to deal with it. And the attraction of that.
And I think for me, as someone said earlier, I've lost track now of just the journey of the thing that gave me hope is the journey of swings and misses along the way. That gave me ease. It's like, okay, I definitely have swung and missed a lot, right? And that all of that was moving along as it should. And so that feels like a source of comfort for me too. Let's shift gears to talk about Buddha nature, and then I want to make sure that we have time for at least a small practice and expression of that. So on the next page, on page 5, there's a bit from Buddha nature and 3 sources. I'll just do the framing bit and then invite someone to read the pieces from the Pali Canon from Suzuki Roshi and from Gogu. Buddha nature is the inherent quality of being a Buddha or a fully enlightened being, which is always present in every sentient being. It is not something to be achieved or acquired. We express our Buddha nature through our practice. In Zen, we express it directly through Zazen, our meditation practice. Here are some notes on Buddha nature from the teachings. Somebody else want to jump in? Yep. Yeah, go for it.
From the Buddha in the Pali Canon. Scholars often trace the idea of Buddha nature to the worlds of the Buddha, as recorded in the Pali Canon, among the oldest historical records of the Buddha's teachings, which were recorded hundreds of years after the Buddha's death. In the Pali Canon, the Buddha shares this with his monks.
Luminous. Go for it, Rosemary.
Thank you. Luminous monks is the mind. Luminous monks is the mind, and it is defiled by incoming defilements. The uninstructed run-of-the-mill person doesn't discern that as it actually is present, which is why I tell you that. For the uninstructed run-of-the-mill person, there is no development of the mind.
It's interesting to me that, we're reading Silent Illumination, that he mentions that luminous mind.
Look at the second one. Luminous monks is the mind, and it is freed from incoming defilements. The well-instructed disciple of the noble ones discerns that it is actually present, which is why I tell you that. For the well-instructed disciple of the noble ones, there is development of the mind. And if you're reading some of the ancient texts, even translated, there's a lot of this kind of language that can be a little bit tricky, and you get the sense of an oral tradition that has been carried on for a long time in memory. There's a rhythm to it that then is captured in language after.
From Suzuki Roshi and Not Always So. So in each moment, concentrate and really be yourself. At this moment, where is Buddha nature? Buddha nature is when you say yes. That is yes. That yes is Buddha nature itself. The Buddha nature, which you think you already have within yourself, is not Buddha nature. When you become you yourself, of when you forget all about yourself and say, yes, that is Buddha nature.
Cool.
From Gwogu in Silent Illumination. Buddha nature, our true nature, is simply freedom. It is not a thing. If it were, then it would have a before and an after. It would be subject to birth and death, and would be either permanent or impermanent. Buddha nature is inconceivable. We too are inconceivable. This inconceivability is that right here and right now, we are free. This inconceivability.
I love all three of these because they're so different and so rich, and they all orbit something. And I'm just curious what, as you read either from the Buddha directly in the Pali Canon, from Suzuki Roshi, Gwogu, what stands out for you and speaks to you now?
For me, it's Gwogu. Freedom. Freedom is release. It's peace. It is getting to sit with who you are, what you are, wherever you are, as you are, with a sense of peace, contentment, and wanting nothing else, nothing more, nothing less. This is enough. It's enough. I love that. And that we already are and think we're not, because we get all stressed over this or that or the other, or think we should, as Shakyamuni's father thought he should be a certain person. Yeah, the freedom.
That's what I always thought of as Buddha nature. But what strikes me in these readings is Buddha nature is when you say yes. That gives me pause. I mean, that completely was like, what, really? Because then just the question shifts my entire perspective. It's like, oh, well, that's something I feel arise within myself. How do I attune myself to that? And where would that take me? It would be an act of, it's kind of a flow. But it's similar to the joy that I was meant, that struck me earlier, is that I'm forgetting that part, it seems. And these are excellent reminders.
What strikes me is when you become yourself, because that's so loaded. I mean, it makes me think of Dogen's quote. Because you go yourself, and then you go, oh yeah, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this. Oh no, I'm maybe not. I mean, then you have to trace it on. Who am I exactly?
Well,
opinions and all that stuff.
But maybe becoming yourself is when you let go of all that stuff that's been attached to you, and just experience, oh, as you were born, I'm a living being.
I agree. Yeah.
And Jenna, if I was going to say the papa in me with a toddler who just turned 3, the yes really resonates because there's so many times when he is doing crazy things that I go, no. And it's more not a no of a guardrail for him. It is my visceral reaction of I want him to be other or doing other than he is. That's a different kind of no. It's not no, that's not safe. That's appropriate. It's no, like, damn it, ... That's that clench, that squeeze, that no. That's the no that I'm going, oh, okay, that's there. So.
Because Buddha said no sometimes.
Right.
I like the idea that it's, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, that it's an activity as opposed to a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's really important. That's really important to me. And also, a lot of what we're reading is trying, especially in Suzuki Roshi, trying is so counterproductive.
Yeah.
And that's, that's a trap that I know I fall into daily. minute by minute.
I wanted to give us a brief embodied experience of what it might look like to tinker with this Buddha nature. And so I'm going to ask us to get to a position where you can be in front of the camera and bow. And we'll take from do a full gassho bow. But I'm going to give you a little bit of instruction before we do it. I'm going to ask you to bow 3 times and give you just a bit of framing. And I'm modifying something that I learned from Kim. So, and as you're holding this posture, we didn't get to this yet, but let me just kind of give you a little bit of direction here as you're thinking about this. In gassho, we're placing palms together, and you're about a fist distance between your hands and your nose. So if you want to think about how far away it is. And if you're thinking about your elbows don't need to be squished in here, and they don't need to be wings flying away. There's a place that's kind of in the middle here, right? And just in front of your face. But as you assume this posture, my first invitation is just to bow to everyone on the screen. So bow when you feel ready. My second invitation is to bow mindfully as you can. And my third invitation is to bow like it's the last time you will ever bow. How was that for you? What did you notice?
That last bow really got me, like made me want to cry.
Still is, yeah, me too.
Me too.
Made me realize the preciousness of this moment and of all of you and of our connection and the vanishingness that I don't usually take time to notice.
Yeah, and the inevitability that there will be one last bow.
Definitely more emotion with each one.
What else?
I was actually mindful of my breath when I did that last bow.
You held your breath?
No, it's so with each bow, I would do an out breath, but with that last one, I was more mindful that what if this was, sorry, but I'm like, what if I died like this down?
Yes.
Even down. So, it's just that exhalation and thinking, what if, my last breath was this and I toppled over and, but the form was the same. It's just what was going through my head. So when I took that inhale, as I sat back up, I'm like, I have breath, but yes.
Mine was similar to Jay's, except mine was watching the last breath of a loved one.
Mm.
So my last bow connected with that.
I even noticed the shifts between the different bows, right? The first one, I was attentive to each of you, but there was something in I know it was more, I had a level of full body awareness on the second one. I could feel it, my bow and my toes. That's how I would describe it to you.
Mhm.
And so there was a difference even in that shift when I was reminding ourselves to be mindful in that way. And the last one, I almost didn't want to come up from the bow. It was like my heart was melting at the bottom of it.
Mm.
And I just wanted to clutch here. And it was such a slow return.
You know, can I just say, I don't know, from my perspective, that every action is with reverence, like, so when you said even, oh, with reverence, in my head, I'm like, it's no different than my first bow, because I did it with reverence the first time when I bowed to you. So, it's just with that last one for me, it's because I imagined myself giving my last breath. And if I did my last breath like this with that exhale, and I topple down with no inhale, now I'll be head down, on the ground. And this is the workings of my mind, right? But the interactions, I think, is reverent. So it doesn't, for me, changing who it was, it did not impact me. You know what I'm saying? It didn't impact. It was just the idea of last breath, because I think personally, I changed that a while back. Like, you're no more important than I am. The titles are unimportant. People get caught up in that. And I try to have my existence without giving more weight to somebody because they're named minister or manager or anything. I try to treat people equally, because I don't think anyone is more important than another, even though people get caught up in that.
It's one of our precepts of meeting people on equal ground, right?
Yeah.
So it's part of our practice, very much so. And but to embody that wholeheartedly in every moment is an edge for a lot of us. It is for me, certainly. Anne, what were you going to say?
Oh, I was just going to say, for the last bout, I didn't want to start. I didn't want to end, because that seemed like, this is the last one, but I didn't want to start either.
Well, I'm so thankful to have had this time with you and to practice with you a little bit. As per usual, I tend to overplan. And so there's lots of stuff in here that we'll revisit, and I'll think about what's next. I have two quick things before we go for today, though, and before we bow out. One is there's a link to sign up for Circle, so that if you're not signed up, you should be able to get to all the stuff that I'll put up on there, and a host of other things that people are tinkering around with. I am going to post a link to what's called a Jamboard, if you've used a Jamboard before, where you can just jot down questions. One of the things I'm curious about is, what questions do you have about our practice and about Zen in general? I'll try to incorporate those in. And then I won't pretend that I have all the answers by any stretch of the imagination, but if there are things that you're curious about, I'd love to use this as an opportunity. So I'll post that once everyone's registered. So look for that tomorrow or Monday. And then just on the back of this, if you have a little time, I always like to give folks a chance to sort of reflect a little bit. And I would really encourage you to think about, is there an intention you would set for yourself in the coming week based on what we talked about or what you discovered today? Just one, something simple, something clear, something plain. We don't need to share it now. We'll honor folks' time. But I just would encourage you to set some sort of intention. And maybe a little bit later, I'll ping the folks on who are here today and just say, what did you do? What did you set? And how's it going? What are you noticing? But this was so lovely. I'm so grateful to have had this time with you. So thank you so much.
Nate, I have a question. The link that you just posted, when I click that link, it says join Appamada, but I'm like, is that what it's supposed to say?
It is, yes. So you have to sign up to Circle is the platform. You just sign up with whatever email you're using, and then you'll have access to a host of things on the platform. So if you have any hiccup.
Sorry, my question about it is, how do I get back there? Like, I was there once, but I don't really know how to get there again.
Yeah, it's
what's the URL? Is there a URL? I mean,
yeah, there's let me find
something
it right
I can remember.
Yeah, it's appamada.circle.so. So I'll chat it right now. So here's
Thank
the
you.
return link. Yep.
Thank you,
And
Nate.
Thank you.
Nate, is that the what is the registration? That's,
The registration is to sign up for the platform. It's called Circle. So that you
just
have
to sign up
access
for the
to it.
platform. Okay,
You
not
got
for
it.
the course.
No, not for the course, for the platform.
Oh, okay, that's what I was confused. I'm signed up for Circle, so I'm.
Yeah, you're good. So you're set. All right.
And
Have a lovely, yeah,
Wonderful.
sorry, and this is separate from the emails I normally get from Appamata.
that's correct.
Okay.
This is something we're experimenting with.
Okay.
And so we're trying to see if this is a thing that we find useful. And so
Okay.
there'd be an opportunity for us to engage there a little bit.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
And
Thank
will,
all of you.
Thank you.
will
Thank
you,
Nate.
will you give your baby a hug from me, Nate? I don't get
Yes.
to hug babies often, so here's a
I
hug.
will.
If you'll pass that on to your baby.
I will.
All right.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. Enjoy, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
See you soon.
See you soon.